"You're fired!" Laura's boss yelled in front of everyone. Laura Stevens was sure that day would be like any other at her cashier job at the supermarket. However, fate had other plans for her. Dawn had painted just another ordinary day in Laura Stevens' life. She arrived at Econo Save supermarket on time, as always, ready for another long shift at the cash register. While she organized her station, straightening the keypad and aligning the shopping bags, Laura felt a different vibration in the air, a subtle current of expectation that coursed through her spirit. There was something in the air suggesting this day would not be like the others, yet she couldn't pinpoint what it was. The supermarket was particularly busy that morning. Lines began to form as customers, armed with shopping lists and discount coupons, pushed their carts down the aisles. Fluorescent lights shone brightly over neatly aligned products on shelves, and the sounds of conversations and announcements over the loudspeaker filled the environment with the typical cacophony of a shopping day. It was then that a diminutive, stooped figure slowly entered the store. It was Mrs. Eleanor Thompson, a regular customer known for her kindness and silver hair that always seemed to catch the light of the surroundings. She looked frailer that morning, leaning on her walker with one hand while holding a shopping list in the other. Her eyes scanned the aisles, searching for something specific. Reaching the canned goods section, Mrs. Thompson stopped, her eyes fixated on a point above her head. With a look of frustration, she leaned back slightly, trying to reach a can of soup that was just out of reach on the top shelf. She stretched her hand, her fingers trembling as they tried in vain to grasp the desired can. Laura, watching the scene from her register, felt an impulse to help. She knew she was not supposed to leave her post without permission, but the sight of Mrs. Thompson struggling to reach the can triggered something within her. With a quick glance around to ensure her manager was not in sight, she stepped away from the register and approached the elderly woman swiftly. "Let me help you, Mrs. Thompson," Laura said kindly, reaching the top shelf and grabbing the soup can. "These shelves are a bit too high, aren't they?" "Oh dear, you are an angel. Always so thoughtful," Mrs. Thompson replied with a warm smile, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I don't know what I'd do without kind people like you here." "It's no trouble at all, Mrs. Thompson. I'm here to help," Laura responded, handing her the can with a smile. She made sure the customer was settled before starting to return to her post. However, before Laura could fully step away, the shrill voice of Mr. Richard Dale, her manager, cut through the air like a sharp blade. "Laura, what do you think you're doing?" he exclaimed, approaching quickly with a marked expression of disapproval on his face. Laura turned, startled by his sudden approach, and prepared to explain. The tension in the air was palpable as all eyes turned to them, anticipating the unfolding events that were about to begin. Without a moment's hesitation, Laura stepped away from the security of her cash register, driven by a compelling urge to assist. Her decision was simple yet profound, a natural response to the sight of Mrs. Eleanor Thompson struggling to reach the top shelf. In Laura's view, the well-being and satisfaction of a customer were paramount, a philosophy ingrained in her through years of service-oriented work. This act, instinctive and filled with goodwill, however, rippled through the air with unforeseen consequences. As Laura navigated through the bustling aisles, her presence away from the cash register created a subtle disruption. The regular rhythm of beeping items and exchanged greetings at her station was replaced by an unusual silence, a gap that soon caught the watchful eyes of management. Richard Dale, the store manager known for his strict adherence to rules and procedures, noticed the absence almost immediately. His management style, rooted in a rigid interpretation of company policies, left little room for the spontaneous acts of kindness that Laura valued. From his vantage point at the store's main office, overlooking the rows of cash registers, Dale's gaze was sharp and unforgiving. The scene unfolding before him, a cashier abandoning her post during peak hours, was not merely an employee stepping out of line, but a direct challenge to the order he was tasked with maintaining. To Dale, rules were the backbone of efficiency and order, elements he believed were essential for the smooth operation of any retail establishment. The air around Laura seemed to thicken as she assisted Mrs. Thompson. her actions punctuated by the elderly woman's grateful smile. Unbeknownst to Laura, each moment spent away from her post added weight to the impending confrontation. The store, alive with the day-to-day chaos of shoppers and clattering carts, became a stage for a looming clash of principles. As Laura returned the can to Mrs. Thompson, ensuring the elderly lady had no further needs, the distance between her and her workstation seemed to grow with every step. The path back was not just a physical space to cross, but a gauntlet laid down by her choices, a test of her professional resolve in the face of strict corporate expectations. Meanwhile, Dale's frustration simmered as he observed the scene, his belief in absolute adherence to protocol making him increasingly resolute in his upcoming response. In his eyes, Laura's commendable act was overshadowed by what he perceived as a breach of discipline, a notion that set the stage for the harsh reprimand that was to follow. As Laura made her way back to her register, the stage was set, the players were in place, and the supermarket's usual hum of activity was poised to be disrupted by the impending confrontation that would challenge the very principles each held dear. The scene in the supermarket shifted dramatically as Richard Dale's reprimand cut through the usual cacophony of shopping noises like a harsh, discordant note. Positioned at the end of the busy aisles, Dale's stance was rigid, his expression a stern mask that spoke volumes of his disapproval. Laura, who had just returned to her post, was suddenly thrust into an unenviable spotlight, her act of kindness now the subject of a stern managerial rebuke. As Dale chastised Laura, the bustling activity within the Econo Save seemed to slow, the air thickening with tension. Customers paused, their expressions morphing into frowns as they witnessed the harsh treatment being meted out to a well-liked cashier. The reprimand was not just a correction in Dale's view, but a necessary reaffirmation of the rules, a lesson he believed essential for maintaining order within the store's ranks. His voice, usually reserved for directing operations or announcing store specials over the intercom, now bore a sharp edge of authority that was both unsettling and final. Laura stood, the very picture of shock and dismay. Her face, usually bright and welcoming, reflected the gravity of the situation. Around her, whispers began to circulate among the customers and staff, a murmuring wave of disbelief and empathy. Dale's decision to terminate her employment for what he deemed a violation of company policies was not just a verdict on Laura's actions, but a statement on his rigid interpretation of the rules. The impact of this decision rippled outward, touching everyone present, but none more so than Mrs. Eleanor Thompson. The elderly woman, who had been the beneficiary of Laura's simple act of kindness, stood amidst the aisles, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her grocery bag. The stark contrast between the warmth she had received from Laura and the cold, bureaucratic response from the management left her deeply shaken. Her eyes, filled with a mix of gratitude towards Laura and dismay at the unfolding events, mirrored the collective sentiment of the onlookers. In the aftermath of Dale's decisive action, the atmosphere in the supermarket was charged with a heavy sense of injustice. Employees exchanged glances, their faces a mixture of fear and anger, aware that the dismissal could have been directed at any one of them under similar circumstances. The customers, meanwhile, began to voice their discontent, some shaking their heads in disapproval while others whispered words of support towards Laura. As Laura collected her personal belongings, her steps echoed hollowly against the supermarket floor. Each step was heavy with the weight of the unexpected turn her day had taken. The reality of her dismissal settled around her like a cold shroud, her future uncertain and her disappointment palpable. Yet amidst this personal upheaval, a figure of authority was about to enter the fray, unnoticed by most, but destined to change the course of events dramatically. This unforeseen intervention would soon unfold as Henry Cartwright, the CEO of Econo Save, made his unannounced visit, stepping into the store at a moment fraught with tension and upheaval. As Laura silently gathered her belongings, her movements slow and burdened with the weight of her sudden dismissal, an intriguing figure entered the supermarket Econo Save, largely unnoticed by the preoccupied shoppers and staff. The man, distinguished and poised, carried himself with an air of authority that subtly commanded attention. He was Henry Cartwright, the CEO of the Econo Save supermarket chain, known among the corporate circles for his unorthodox management style and occasional unannounced visits to various locations in his extensive network of stores. On this particular day, Cartwright had chosen this bustling store for one of his impromptu evaluations, driven by a philosophy that staying connected with the ground operations kept the business grounded in reality. Clad in a well-tailored suit that spoke of corporate elegance, yet practical enough for a supermarket walkthrough, he paused momentarily at the entrance. His sharp eyes quickly took in the scene, the aisles teeming with customers, the diligent employees stocking shelves and managing registers, and the unusual cluster of people gathered around one of the cash registers, where the atmosphere was noticeably tense. Cartwright's approach was calculated and discreet as he began to navigate through the store. His presence was still under the radar as he observed the dynamics of the store, making mental notes on everything from customer service interactions to the efficiency of aisle layouts. However, his focus soon narrowed on the unusual gathering at Laura's register, where the murmurs of discontent among the customers and the palpable dismay of the employees drew his deeper interest. As he edged closer, his keen observation skills allowed him to piece together the situation unfolding. He noted Laura's somber expression as she packed up her personal effects under the watchful eyes of her colleagues and several sympathetic customers. The air around her was thick with empathy and quiet protest, a stark contrast to the usual hum of a busy supermarket. Intrigued and concerned, Cartwright's approach remained unhurried and observant. He recognized the potential implications of such a public dismissal, not just on the employee morale, but on customer perception of the store's management. It was clear to him that whatever had transpired here could serve as a critical learning opportunity and possibly a moment for corrective action. Moving closer, still unnoticed by most, Cartwright prepared to engage with the individuals involved. His unexpected presence was about to shift the narrative dramatically, turning what was a routine visit into a pivotal moment that would address not only the immediate issue at hand, but also larger questions about company values and leadership. As he prepared to reveal himself and step into the unfolding drama, the store's routine hustle seemed to pause, awaiting the intervention of its highest leader. This pivotal intervention would soon unfold, marking a decisive moment in the life of the store and its employees. As the unexpected visitor, who was Henry Cartwright, the CEO, seamlessly integrated himself into the tense tableau that had gripped one corner of the store, his intervention was not immediately forceful, but calculated and observant. He requested explanations, drawing near the group that had formed around the cash register where Laura had been summarily dismissed. The atmosphere, previously thick with dismay and whispered disapproval, shifted subtly as Cartwright's presence became known. Richard Dale, still flush with the authority he had wielded just moments before, was taken aback by the CEO's sudden appearance. He attempted to maintain a veneer of professionalism as he explained the situation. Dale presented his decision to dismiss Laura as a necessary act to uphold company policies, a defense of the rules that he believed were absolute, essential to maintaining order and efficiency within the store. His explanation, however, was tinged with the undertone of defensiveness, as if sensing that the justification of strict policy adherence might not hold as much weight under the scrutiny of the company's top executive. Cartwright listened intently, his expression inscrutable, giving nothing away of his thoughts or leanings. His presence alone altered the dynamics, infusing the moment with a gravity that both reassured and intimidated those involved. After Dale had finished, Cartwright turned his attention to Laura. Instead of making an immediate judgment, he requested her perspective, showing a willingness to understand the situation from all angles. This approach was reflective of his belief in ethical leadership, valuing the human element of business operations as much as the adherence to rules. Laura, though initially hesitant under the unexpected focus, gathered her composure. The opportunity to explain her actions in the presence of the CEO offered a sliver of hope that the day's events might yet be redeemed. She detailed her interaction with Mrs. Thompson, emphasizing her commitment to customer service and the spontaneous decision to assist someone in need. an act of kindness that she believed reflected the company's values as she understood them. Throughout this exchange, the other employees and some customers watched, their expressions a mix of curiosity and anticipation. They witnessed a moment that would usually be hidden within the walls of conference rooms and managers' offices unfold openly, adding a layer of raw honesty to the proceedings. Cartwright absorbed Laura's account, his demeanor thoughtful, as he weighed the human implications against the infrastructural mandates that Dale had so rigidly enforced. The scene set not just a stage for the resolution of a simple dispute, but echoed a larger dialogue about the balance between corporate governance and the values of compassion and empathy in customer service. As Laura finished her explanation, the air seemed charged with the possibility of change. Cartwright's next actions would set the tone not only for the resolution of this incident, but potentially for the leadership style and culture within the Econo Save chain. Poised to make a decision, Cartwright's philosophy of ethical and humane business practices was about to be tested, bridging the gap between high-level management decisions and the day-to-day realities of store operation. After Laura finished sharing her perspective on the incident, the atmosphere in the supermarket seemed to hold its breath. Her detailed account of the commitment to excellent and compassionate customer service resonated deeply within the gathered crowd, echoing through the aisles of the Econo Save. Her words painted a picture of a dedicated employee who acted out of a genuine desire to help, a fundamental human impulse that had unexpectedly placed her career in jeopardy. Henry Cartwright, a seasoned CEO whose experience had bridged the bustling floors of retail environments to the strategic quiet of boardrooms, listened with a level of attentiveness that belied his normally inscrutable demeanor. Laura's recounting of the events not only provided clarity, but also highlighted a critical disconnect between corporate policy and the on-the-ground reality faced by employees. In her story, Cartwright recognized not just the failings of a single manager's judgment, but a teachable moment for the entire organization. As Laura spoke, her initial trepidation gave way to a quiet strength. Her confidence grew as she realized that her actions, though now the subject of such scrutiny, were aligned with the deeper values that Econo Save purported to uphold, values that Cartwright himself had often espoused in annual reports and employee newsletters. Her account, straightforward yet imbued with an emotional undercurrent, struck a chord with Cartwright, prompting him to reflect on the broader implications of the day's events. Cartwright's resolve solidified as he processed Laura's narrative alongside Dale's earlier justifications. The contrast between Laura's heartfelt assistance to a customer and the rigid adherence to protocol that Dale defended was stark. It highlighted a misalignment that Cartwright knew could not be left unaddressed if the company was to maintain its reputation not only as a business leader, but as a community pillar that valued its customers and employees alike. The gathered employees and customers, who had been silent witnesses to this unfolding drama, now looked on with a mixture of hope and anxiety. They represented the wider Econo Save family, each person internally debating the outcome and its implications for their own positions within the company. Their faces reflected a spectrum of emotions, from concern for Laura to curiosity about how Cartwright would navigate this delicate situation. In the air hung a palpable sense of anticipation. Would Cartwright adhere to the established protocols, or would he pivot towards a more compassionate approach that could redefine the company's internal culture? This moment was more than just about rectifying a potential injustice. It was about setting a precedent for how similar situations would be handled in the future. As Laura concluded her account, the focus naturally shifted back to Cartwright. He stood contemplatively, the weight of his next words not lost on him. His decision would not only impact Laura's immediate future, but potentially echo through the corridors of Econo Save's many stores. With the stage set for a decision, Cartwright prepared to deliver his verdict, fully aware of the ripple effects it would generate. His next steps were poised to potentially transform a routine day at Econo Save into a landmark moment in the company's history. As the crowd watched, Henry Cartwright's demeanor subtly shifted from one of contemplation to decisive action. In a transformative gesture that caught everyone by surprise, He reinstated Laura Stevens not just to her former position, but elevated her role within Econo Save. This decision was more than a simple reversal of a dismissal. It was a bold statement about the values and future direction of the company. Cartwright's actions went beyond merely correcting what he saw as a misstep in management. He saw an opportunity to enhance the very fabric of Econo Save's customer service philosophy. By promoting Laura to a trainer for customer service, he not only rectified the injustice of her firing, but also turned her ordeal into a beacon of progressive leadership. This new role was perfectly suited to someone of Laura's caliber, someone who had demonstrated an innate ability to exceed mere transactions with customers by creating meaningful interactions. Her new position would allow her to impart her philosophy of empathy and support across the company, potentially transforming the standard of service throughout the Econo Save chain. The promotion was a clear signal to all employees that the company valued and sought to cultivate a culture of compassion and excellence in customer interaction. It acknowledged that adhering to the spirit of service often required bending rigid rules that overlooked human elements. Cartwright envisioned a workforce trained under Laura's guidance, embodying the principles that had led her to assist Mrs. Thompson without hesitation, a workforce that would make customer care a top priority, thus enhancing the shopping experience for all Econo Save patrons. This change of fortune for Laura was a spectacle of rare corporate humility and adaptability. Employees murmured among themselves, their earlier fears alleviated and replaced with a new sense of pride in their employer. The customers, having witnessed this unexpected turn of events, felt a renewed respect for a company that stood by the righteousness of its workers, potentially fostering a deeper loyalty to the brand. As Laura absorbed the gravity of her new role, the store around her seemed to buzz with a renewed energy. Her colleagues looked at her not just as a peer who had faced an unjust setback, but now as a mentor and exemplar of the best the company aspired to be. Laura's reinstatement and promotion did not just change her personal trajectory, but also hinted at a broader shift in company culture towards greater inclusivity and understanding, a shift that could redefine what it meant to work for and shop at Econo Save. Cartwright's decision marked a pivotal moment in the day, a clear turning point that promised new beginnings. With Laura's future at Econo Save now brightly rerouted, attention began to shift to the broader implications of this decision. The air was thick with anticipation about how this change would ripple outwards, affecting not only the store's operations but also its managerial ethos. As the crowd began to disperse, with shoppers resuming their interrupted routines and employees returning to their tasks, the story of Laura's day was far from over. The next chapter was just beginning to unfold, as attention turned to how Richard Dale, the manager who had precipitated this crisis, would respond to the dramatic shift in the store's leadership landscape. In the wake of the dramatic shifts at Econo Save, Richard Dale found himself at a pivotal juncture. The sharp redirection in company policy and the elevation of Laura Stevens to a position that championed empathy and customer connection stood in stark contrast to his own management style, which had long prioritized efficiency and strict adherence to rules. Faced with the clear message from Henry Cartwright that the company's values were evolving, Dale was compelled to adapt or risk obsolescence. The intervention for Dale came in the form of a comprehensive managerial training program, a course designed not only to polish his leadership skills, but also to deepen his understanding and practice of empathy in the workplace. This program, recommended by Cartwright and customized for Dale's needs, aimed to transform his approach from one that viewed rules as rigid frameworks to be enforced to one that saw them as guidelines that could be adapted to foster a supportive and nurturing work environment. The training included workshops on emotional intelligence, where Dale was encouraged to explore the impact of his decisions on employees' morale and the overall atmosphere of the workplace. He engaged in role-playing scenarios that put him in the shoes of both employees and customers, forcing him to confront the human element of business decisions. Additionally, seminars on leadership styles opened his eyes to the spectrum of approaches beyond the authoritarian, highlighting the benefits of a more participative and inclusive management style. As Dale delved deeper into his training, the initial resistance gave way to gradual acceptance. Insights from behavioral psychologists and seasoned leaders in the industry painted a vivid picture of how a flexible, empathetic approach could lead not only to happier employees, but also to increased productivity and loyalty. This shift was challenging for someone who had built his career on predictability and control, but the evolving landscape of corporate leadership demanded adaptability. Simultaneously, the feedback from the Econo Save staff, who were witnessing these changes firsthand, began to alter the atmosphere of the store. Observing their previously stringent manager engaging with new learning and visibly trying to implement changes softened their attitudes and increased their openness to his leadership. This evolving dynamic was observed closely by both the staff and Cartwright, who considered this transformation critical not just for the well-being of the employees, but for the overall health and image of the company. As Dale continued his journey of professional and personal growth, the store itself became a laboratory for testing new ideas in management and customer service. The impact of his training was becoming evident in his daily interactions and decision-making, marking a significant departure from his earlier days. The transformation of Richard Dale was not just a personal victory, but a symbol of Econo Save's commitment to growth and adaptation in a rapidly changing retail world. With Dale's transformation underway and the store experiencing a new era of management philosophy, the focus naturally began to shift to the broader implications for Econo Save's future. How would this new approach influence the company's operations and its relationship with the community? As the store closed for the day, the seeds of change were already sprouting, setting the stage for new developments that promised to redefine the Econo Save shopping experience. As the new trainer of customer service at Econo Save, Laura Stevens became a catalyst for a profound transformation within the supermarket's atmosphere. Her promotion was not just a personal triumph, but a strategic move by the company to inject a fresh ethos into its daily operations. Laura, with her innate kindness and empathy, was now at the forefront of this change, tasked with turning the supermarket into a beacon of customer service excellence. Laura approached her new role with the same compassion and diligence that had marked her time as a cashier. She started by organizing workshops and training sessions for her colleagues, focusing on the importance of empathy, active listening, and personalized service. Her sessions were interactive and inclusive, encouraging participation and sharing of experiences among the staff. She introduced role-playing exercises that allowed employees to experience both sides of the customer service counter, helping them understand and empathize with the challenges and needs of their customers. The impact of Laura's efforts was visible and swift. A new sense of camaraderie and support blossomed among the employees. Staff members who once operated in silos, focusing only on their specific tasks, were now more collaborative, often stepping in to help each other and solve problems together. This shift was palpable not only to the staff, but also to the customers, who began to enjoy a warmer, more welcoming shopping environment. Regular customers noticed the change and expressed their appreciation, which in turn boosted the morale of the staff. Laura also implemented a recognition program that highlighted exemplary customer service acts, further encouraging her colleagues to go above and beyond in their roles. These recognitions were celebrated with small but meaningful rewards, fostering a culture of acknowledgement and appreciation that had been somewhat lacking before. As the store's atmosphere evolved, so did its reputation within the community. Econo Save began to be seen not just as a place to shop, but as a community hub where customers were treated with respect and warmth. Positive reviews on social media and community forums increased, drawing new customers curious to experience the renowned service for themselves. Moreover, Laura's influence extended beyond the customer service department. Her philosophy of kindness and mutual support inspired other departments to adopt similar values. The butchery, bakery, and produce staff started to engage more openly with customers, sharing tips and helping them make informed purchasing decisions. This holistic approach to customer service began reshaping the entire store's operations, aligning them more closely with Cartwright's vision of a business that serves its community with heart and integrity. As Laura prepared for another training session, focusing on conflict resolution and customer retention, the entire store buzzed with a renewed energy. Employees were not just coming to work, they were coming to a place where they felt valued and part of a larger mission. The narrative of Econo Save was being rewritten, with Laura Stevens leading the charge in fostering an environment that cherished kindness and mutual respect above all. With this nurturing atmosphere now firmly established, the narrative prepared to shift focus once again, this time towards the upcoming company-wide awards event, where Cartwright planned to share his vision for the future of Econo Save. This event promised to not only celebrate the successes under Laura's guidance, but also to set the stage for new initiatives that would further embed the company's values into its business practices. The annual Econo Save Awards event was always a grand occasion, meant to celebrate the achievements and hard work of its employees. This year, however, the event held a particular allure, not only because of the recent shifts within the company culture, but also due to the buzz around potential announcements from Henry Cartwright, the esteemed CEO known for his forward-thinking leadership. As the event unfolded in the elegantly decorated hall of the local convention center, employees from various stores across the region gathered, exchanging stories and successes of the past year. The air was thick with anticipation, with everyone dressed in their best, eager to see what the evening would bring. The room was filled with round tables adorned with crisp white linens and sparkling silverware, under the soft glow of chandeliers that cast a warm light over the smiling faces. Henry Cartwright took the stage to a round of applause, his presence commanding as ever. He began by acknowledging the hard work of all the employees, citing specific instances of exceptional customer service and innovation that had strengthened the company's market position. His speech was a powerful reminder of Econo Save's growth and the collective effort that had driven its success. As the applause died down, Cartwright shifted the tone of his speech towards the future. He spoke about the evolving landscape of retail, the importance of adapting to changing consumer needs, and the role of compassionate leadership in navigating these changes. His words were not just reflective, but visionary, setting the stage for a significant announcement that few anticipated. Then, with the room hanging on his every word, Cartwright made a revelation that would mark a pivotal moment in Econo Save's history. He announced his decision to retire, a move that surprised many given his vibrant leadership and the absence of any prior hints at stepping down. The silence that followed was a mix of shock and respect as employees processed the news. But the true surprise came when he named his successor. Laura Stevens, who had started as a cashier and had recently risen to become a trainer for customer service, was chosen to lead the company. Cartwright's decision was rooted in his firm belief that Laura embodied the values and vision necessary for Econo Save's future. He explained that her compassion, innovative approach to customer service, and ability to inspire those around her made her not just a suitable choice, but the ideal leader to steer Econo Save forward. The announcement set off a wave of applause mixed with astonishment. Laura, who had been as unaware of this decision as her colleagues, felt a rush of emotions as she stood to join Cartwright on stage. The weight of the responsibility was immense, but so was the honor and trust bestowed upon her. As the event continued, with Laura now at the center of conversations, the employees began to speculate excitedly about the new direction the company would take under her leadership. Her story of unexpected rise from a cashier to CEO resonated deeply, serving as a beacon of hope and a testament to the possibilities that lay within Econo Save for all its employees. The evening drew to a close with a standing ovation for both Cartwright and Laura, a fitting end to an eventful night. As attendees began to leave, filled with new enthusiasm and curiosity about the future, the focus subtly shifted towards what Laura's leadership would mean for Econo Save. This transition promised not just continuity, but an exciting evolution, as the next chapter in Econo Save's story was about to begin, with Laura preparing to address the entire company for the first time as its new CEO. As the newly appointed CEO, Laura stood beside Henry Cartwright, absorbing the gravity of her new role amidst the echoes of applause. The room gradually settled, and Cartwright took the opportunity to deepen the understanding of the values he sought to perpetuate within Econo Save by revealing more personal layers of the narrative that had led to this moment. Cartwright began by revisiting the incident that had first put Laura in the spotlight, her interaction with Mrs. Eleanor Thompson. He disclosed a previously unknown connection to her, explaining that Mrs. Thompson was not just any customer, but had been his elementary school teacher, a woman who had profoundly impacted his early life and values. Her teachings on kindness, understanding, and ethical behavior had stayed with Cartwright throughout his career, shaping his approach to business and leadership. Delving deeper, Cartwright shared how he had serendipitously witnessed Laura's act of kindness towards Mrs. Thompson during his unannounced store visit. This moment of serendipity was not just a validation of Laura's character, but a poignant reminder of his own foundational experiences, reinforcing his belief in the power of compassionate leadership. Furthermore, Cartwright illuminated Laura's background as a social worker, a chapter of her life marked by dedication to helping those in need. Her transition from social work to retail was not merely a career change, but a continuation of her commitment to service, a trait that had shone brightly under the harsh fluorescent lights of the supermarket that fateful day. Her ability to empathize with and assist customers, Cartwright pointed out, was enriched by her deep understanding of human struggles and needs. The insights shared by Cartwright not only painted a richer picture of Laura's qualifications, but also highlighted the parallel paths that both he and Laura had walked, paths marked by personal encounters and experiences that had instilled in them a shared ethos of empathy and ethical conduct. These revelations made Laura's rise seem not just fortuitous, but fated, a narrative of coming full circle from a young social worker to a leader chosen to embody and advance these core values. As the audience absorbed these revelations, the connections between past experiences and present responsibilities became a powerful testament to the notion that personal history and professional life are deeply intertwined, often influencing decisions and leadership styles in profound ways. The evening's disclosures set the stage for a renewed sense of unity and purpose among the Econo Save employees. They now viewed Laura not only as a leader, but as a symbol of the values that they, too, could aspire to uphold within their roles. The event thus became more than a ceremony. It was a reaffirmation of the company's commitment to principles that transcended the mere act of selling groceries. As the event concluded, the focus subtly shifted towards the future, with the crowd dispersing under the weight of new insights and inspirations. The narrative was poised to continue, with Laura ready to embark on her leadership journey, equipped with the lessons of the past and the blessings of the present, promising to steer Econo Save towards a future where these values would flourish even more broadly. Richard Dale's transformation from a stringent, rule-bound manager to a leader who championed empathy and compassion marked a profound shift in his professional journey and the cultural fabric of Econo Save. This change, initially sparked by the mandatory managerial training he underwent, had gradually permeated his approach to leadership and his interactions with both employees and customers. As Dale immersed himself in the training, he began to internalize principles that once seemed antithetical to his management style. Sessions that focused on emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and the power of positive reinforcement transformed his perspective. He learned to recognize the unique needs and potential of each employee, understanding that motivation and productivity were intricately linked to how valued employees felt at their workplace. Over the weeks and months that followed, Dale started to implement these new insights. Meetings that had once been terse and strictly about business metrics now also included discussions about team well-being and personal achievements. Dale, who had once viewed such topics as unnecessary, found that these discussions fostered a stronger, more committed team. Under his new leadership style, the store environment began to thrive. Employees were more willing to approach him with ideas and concerns, leading to innovations in store operations and customer service. Dale's newfound openness to feedback allowed him to address issues before they escalated, creating a smoother operation and happier workplace. His efforts to apply his learning did not go unnoticed. staff turnover rates dropped, and employee satisfaction scores climbed. Dale's commitment to change was not without its challenges. Altering his ingrained habits and perceptions required continuous effort and often humility, a trait he had rarely exercised in his prior role as a strict enforcer of rules. His transformation was a testament to his dedication to his role and his deepening understanding that true leadership involves growth and adaptation. As Dale's new approach took root, the overall atmosphere in Econo Save shifted. The store became a model within the company for how leadership could positively impact employee morale and customer satisfaction. Dale himself became a vocal advocate for the training programs that had changed his perspective, often sharing his experiences with other managers within the Econo Save chain. The culmination of Dale's transformation was evident during an end-of-year review meeting, where he openly credited his team for their hard work and innovative ideas, acknowledging that the store's success was a collective achievement. This acknowledgement further cemented his status as a leader who had truly embraced the principles of empathy and collaboration. As Dale's chapter of change drew to a close, the narrative prepared to shift focus back to Laura and her new initiatives as CEO. Her plans, influenced by her background in social work and her natural inclination towards nurturing growth, promised to take Econo Save to new heights. Dale's transformation had set a powerful precedent, and as the company looked forward, it was clear that under Laura's leadership, the ethos of empathy and personal growth would continue to expand, shaping the future of Econo Save in ways yet to be seen. As the story of Econo Save unfolded, transforming from a tale of strict management and rigid policies to one of empathy and growth, a poignant chapter was written by none other than Mrs. Eleanor Thompson. Her role in the narrative had been seemingly small but profoundly impactful, igniting a cascade of changes that would reshape the company's ethos. Before her quiet departure from the world, Mrs. Thompson chose to leave behind a gift that would extend her influence far beyond the confines of her lifetime. Mrs. Thompson, who had quietly observed the transformation of the supermarket under Laura's compassionate leadership and had herself been a catalyst for the dramatic shifts in Richard Dale's management approach, decided to contribute to the future in a meaningful way. With a generous donation, she established a scholarship fund designed specifically for young individuals who, like many she had encountered in her long and fruitful life, were in dire need of support to achieve their educational aspirations. This scholarship fund, named in honor of Mrs. Thompson, was not merely a financial endowment, but a beacon of hope for those who would otherwise struggle to access higher education. Her gift was a reflection of her lifelong commitment to nurturing potential and fostering opportunities for the less fortunate, principles she had upheld throughout her years as an educator and community member. The announcement of the Eleanor Thompson Scholarship Fund came at a subsequent company meeting where Laura shared the news with Econo Save employees. The fund was received with deep appreciation and respect, as staff members recognized the lasting impact such a gesture would make. It was clear that Mrs. Thompson's legacy would continue to influence lives well beyond her physical presence, promoting educational advancement and providing opportunities for young people to change their destinies. The fund was set up to be managed by a committee within Econo Save, including Laura and several other leaders who had been instrumental in the company's transformation. They worked diligently to ensure that the scholarships would not only provide financial assistance, but also mentorship opportunities, linking recipients with leaders within the company and the broader community who could guide them through their educational journeys and beyond. As the final preparations were made to launch the scholarship program, Econo Save began to publicize the initiative, drawing attention from the local media and the community. The story of Mrs. Thompson's generosity and the transformative leadership of Econo Save under Laura's guidance resonated widely, showcasing the power of individual acts of kindness to inspire widespread change. The legacy of Eleanor Thompson, encapsulated in her final act of generosity, became a symbol of the new Econo Save, a company that valued not just profits but people, not just commerce but community. Her life and legacy close this chapter of the company's history, not just with gratitude, but with a profound example of how legacy and foresight can shape futures and foster hope where it is most needed. As the scholarship recipients began to embark on their educational paths, bolstered by Mrs. Thompson's legacy, the story of Econo Save continued to evolve, driven by leaders who had learned the irreplaceable value of compassion, empathy, and community engagement. The narrative, rich with lessons of personal transformation and corporate responsibility, promised to inspire not only those within Econo Save, but also the wider world, as the echoes of change initiated by a simple act of kindness reverberated outward into the future.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.